Hey guys, how's it going? This is the Ball Metal Nerd coming at you with another vid. And this one is a request I got to do a video a while back, and I'm just now getting around to it. Basically, someone requested me to do a video what I think about the possibility of the end of physical media. Well, I'm going to kind of break it down to different types of physical media, and I'm going to kind of talk about each one as I go along and how likely it is I think it'll go away and what the implications would be if it did go away. The first piece of physical media I'm going to talk about is the oldest physical media that exists, and I, of course, am going to talk about books. Um, I don't think books are likely to go away anytime soon. Obviously, books have been around for a long time. You know, the for I don't know when the printing press was invented, but I know it's been at least 400 to 500 years, right? That books have been a mass market physical item. So yeah, I think they're still here, obviously, despite a whole bunch of other stuff coming along since. And do I think they'll still be around a couple hundred years from now? Yeah, I'm going to go out on a limb and say yes, for several reasons. One, um, books are pretty much most people's first format. And what I mean by that is think about it. When you're a baby and young child, your parents are reading to you generally from a physical book when they're reading to you, right? That so there's an emotional connection there. And then of course, when you're a little kid and you're first learning how to read, generally you're using a physical book to learn how to read. That's true even now. Certainly with my kids, it was the same experience. I mean, yeah, of course, we have digital formats all over the place around here, but for simple reading with young children, it's still physical books, right? So I think that's just something that's very formative for a person, and I don't see digital likely to disrupt that. Also, if we just look at more superficially, I think recently there was a report that ebook sales are falling and physical book sales are actually going up some. So I think physical books, probably as long as humanity exists and society exists, I think physical books will continue to exist. I could be wrong, but whatever. Also, of course, books, even though they take up physical space, they're hugely convenient. They require no device to read them on. You don't need a computer or anything else to read a book, a physical book. They require no electricity. They have no DRM. There's, it's not like, because a file format changes or is not supported, it's not like you can't read a book anymore, right? So there's a million benefits to actual physical books. So I think they will continue to exist more or less forever, as far as I can tell, at least on human timescales. So moving on. Now I'm going to talk about a format that I think is pretty likely to disappear within my lifetime, and if not within my lifetime, certainly within my kids' lifetime. And I, of course, am talking about the venerable newspaper. If you really think about it, I'm honestly kind of surprised they still exist even now. Think about it. Yeah, a few people collect newspapers, but the collector's market for newspapers is extremely small. Newspapers are basically disposable media. Typically, you'll read the contents of a newspaper once, or at least the contents that interest you, and then you'll throw it away. Um, so there's really not, it's not like it's content you go back to again and again and revisit years later. Typically not, so for material like that, the internet is perfect. Same thing kind of with magazines. Well, magazines kind of tie. I guess we'll just say newspapers and magazines. And typically, the only reason people buy newspapers nowadays, at least a lot of people, my wife included, we still buy a newspaper on Sunday simply because of the coupons. So if I'm honestly amazed this hasn't happened, that all the manufacturers that put out these coupons, I'm surprised they haven't just all gotten together and said, hey, why don't we just produce these coupons and distribute them to all these locations, and people can take a pack of coupons home for free, right? To me, that just kind of makes sense. And I guess if they ever decide to do that, it wouldn't surprise me at that point if newspapers just went away completely. Again, I'm also slightly surprised that magazines still exist, because, again, those are typically disposable content that you can get rid of. But there are some people that collect magazines, and they do have some more valuable long-form content in them than newspaper. But generally, websites suffice for the type of content that magazines used to really cover. So those are two formats that may just go away at some point. And if they do I think it will have a huge impact in the world? I would say probably not, because the internet has already greatly diminished the importance of newspapers and magazines compared to what they were. So if they were to go away, I don't think it would have that large of an impact, except, unfortunately, for people losing their jobs. Other than that, small impact. So that was one that's vulnerable. We talked about one that's solid, two that are really vulnerable. Now I'm going to talk about one that I think is kind of in the middle, as far as how vulnerable it is. And I am talking about video games, right? And the reason I bring this up is, for me, my buying habits for video games have shifted slightly over the past few years. I used to purchase, at least for PC, I used to purchase a whole lot of titles physically, right? Majority of, vast majority of titles that I own for PC were bought physically, prior to, I don't want to say 3 or 4 years ago. Over the past 3 or 4 years, however, I have definitely shifted much more towards purchasing games digitally on Steam and other sources, like, GOG, whatever. Because simply there are, the releases tend to be very cheap digitally on PC, and it's super convenient. Obviously, it's instantaneous and yada yada yada. And I don't care that much about having the box for a PC game. It's not super important to me. And the services that I buy from generally don't run into DRM issues with them. And if Steam were to ever, quote, go away, I think they basically have made statements. Now, these are just statements. These aren't a true promise. They've kind of made statements to the tune of, well, if we were ever to go away, we would just kind of unlock everybody's DRM on the games they've already purchased, blah, blah, blah. So, I feel pretty good about buying games through Steam. And, of course, GOG, Good Old Games, is completely DRM free. So I feel pretty good buying games digitally for the PC for a number of reasons. PCs aren't like consoles, and obviously you get a new PC, you can still pretty much play all your old games on a new PC, right? So, that's pretty much that. Now, if we talk about consoles, I've still yet to buy a game digitally through a console store of any sort. I don't do it. I take that back. I did get one game digitally on through the PlayStation Store, because when I bought my PS4, I got a coupon for a free game, right? So I used it because it was free. But other than that, I have not actually spent any actual money on games through that store. And why is that? Well, because buying the discs is still much more convenient. Typically, I can find them for lower cost than the digital copies. Stores compete with each other, lower the cost even more, blah, blah, blah. So buying the discs still makes sense for consoles. Of course, there's been talk about, consoles being exclusively digital pretty much for a few console generations now. It kind of started with the PS3 and Xbox 360. They're obviously that's when digital distribution really kind of started to take off on consoles, and then people were speculating with the PS4 and Xbox One that would be the route they would go. Obviously, that didn't happen. Of course, and now with rumors of a possible PlayStation 5 and beyond. Do I think video games will shift to pure digital distribution? Maybe by the time, I don't know, the PlayStation, say, 7 or 8 arrives, or, the Xbox, whatever the hell they call it, assuming that they're still making consoles by this point in time, like 20 years from now. I could see video games possibly going digital exclusively. It's already really, the transition is definitely occurring on the PC, very much so. And I could see consoles eventually going that way. Now, if that does happen, I don't know if that would necessarily be such a great thing because of the fact that if you can only buy console titles through whatever store, say, the PlayStation 4 or the Windows Store or Microsoft or whatever the fuck you want to call it for Xbox, or say a Nintendo eShop or whatever, if that's the only way to get titles for that console at that point, then there's no price competition whatsoever. You're locked into paying whatever price they decide to charge in that store. It's not an open platform like the PC where you can have various platforms competing with each other, right? It's one. Just one. And if you don't like it, well, you just don't get the game. So, and obviously you can't buy used games at that point because it's all digital code. Good luck buying a used copy of a game. So, I think if it goes away on consoles, I think we'll have a bad time. Honestly, I think we'll have a really bad time if it goes away on consoles. I think that would be very negative and have a very negative impact on the gaming hobby. Honestly, it would definitely not be a positive thing. So that's my opinion as far as how it may impact console games. Now, of course, I'm going to talk about the format that I talk about most on this channel. I'm going to talk about formats for music and movies, because I think the markets are fairly similar. So, of course, we're talking, CD, DVD, Blu-ray, and vinyl, right? How likely do I think that these physical formats for movies and music are to stick around? I think as long as there's any sort of a collector's market for that type of media, it will continue to exist, even if it is kind of a little bit of a boutique item and only available online. I think for the foreseeable future, it'll probably exist. Do I think it'll exist forever like books? Maybe, maybe not. It's hard to say. It's really hard to say how long it'll last. Do I think it'll exist as long as my lifetime? I think it's more likely yes than no. But it's really hard to say. It's kind of foggy because, right now, I think the market is pretty strong, for movies and music. And the reason I say that is you can still find them basically everywhere. They're still in most stores, and they're still common. Obviously, there's still a lot of stores that sell used media. Used movies and music is a pretty thriving industry at the moment. Of course, this can all change. If consumer taste change too much, it can go away. But I don't know how much more consumer taste will change, because if you really think about it, the internet has pretty much already had as much impact as I think it's going to have on the sales of music and movies. I don't know how much more impact the internet could have. I mean, it's not like, oh gosh, there's this thing called the internet coming at it, and it could affect it. It's already affected it. And obviously, sales of this stuff have dropped significantly, but they haven't stopped. They're still at a certain level, and we might be at the, I mean, there is some evidence suggesting that we're kind of at the leveling off point for, these sales. So, again, I've already talked in my other videos, so I'm not going to harp on it too much. Obviously, there's benefits to physical media with this stuff. Control, convenience to it, in some ways is more convenient than digital. And quality, it tends to be higher quality than streams or whatever. So, of course, it says ownership, collecting, all that. Now, let's say it does go away. You can no longer buy new music or new movies physically. You have to get them digitally. Then we're kind of running into the same, some of the same issues that we get with video games. But of course, there would be competing services and all that to sell it. But then you have no ownership, no real control over it, and I don't know if that's such a great thing. I mean, if you can get a DRM without DRM, then of course that alleviates some of it, but it's still not what I would call an ideal situation. And I think it would have a bit of a negative impact overall if that were to go away. It's hard to say exactly what it would be. Obviously, a whole bunch of people would lose their jobs, which of course would be unfortunate. But as far as how it would impact, the collecting hobbies, then obviously, they would become very retro, even more retro hobbies than they are now. Only crazy old kooks would bother collecting music or movies, and I don't think a whole lot of new blood would be drawn in. It would effectively kill the hobby at some point. If that were to go away. And I think if physical music and movies go away, it not only would kill the hobby of collecting music and movies, but it would also probably kill off, I think it would have a very big detrimental equipment effect on equipment as well. Think about it. If you don't have high quality Blu-rays or high quality audio to listen to, you're not going to buy equipment to really get the best out of it. You're not going to buy, good headphones. You're not going to buy good equipment for video, because if it's all just streaming and it's ethereal in the background, who cares, right? So, again, these are all just my opinions, and it's kind of foggy as far as what I think the future of it is. It's really hard to say, because if I had that sort of power prediction, I might just predict tomorrow's winning lottery numbers and retire. So anyway, that's pretty much all I have to say. I really want to hear your guys' thoughts, what you think the future of physical media is in all its iterations, how likely you think it is to stick around, go away, yada, 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 the impacts you think it would have, all that. Just let me know in the comments below. Anyway, if you enjoyed this, as always, thumbs up. If you hate me, thumbs down. Share, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Thanks a whole lot for watching. I'll catch you guys next time.